The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this, Tuesday, July 30th. I hope everybody is having a fantastic week so far. It's only going to get more interesting. All right, jump right into it. Couple of hours ago, Israel bombed a residential building in Beirut, in the southwest part of Beirut. That area that yesterday I described on a map as being basically the headquarters of the Hezbollah. And, so they actually went there. This is after the Biden administration and pretty much everybody in the world told them, no Beirut. You can, go into Lebanon, but no Beirut. You can't attack Beirut. Well, Israel decided to attack Beirut in spite of that. It's not really attacking Beirut. But in this case, they attacked a particular building with targeting Fouad Shukra, something like that, who is the number 3 in Hezbollah. This is a senior member, key advisor to Nasrallah, chief of staff of the military, responsible for all the attacks in the south, and number 3 in the Hezbollah organization, the most senior person Israel has targeted so far in the war. They are. We'll get to him in a minute, but there are mixed messages in terms of the consequence of the strike. Lebanese sources are saying, told Reuters, I guess, that he was not in the building and he had just left, so they missed him. Israeli sources initially thought he had been injured, have since then asserted that he is indeed dead. And I think if Israeli sources are saying he's dead, Lebanon is a place where they would know. I'm pretty sure he's dead. So we'll see. This is a fog of war and all of that, all the caveats involved in that. But it looks like Fouad Shukra is dead, the 3rd in command of Hezbollah. Before we get to the consequences of this, which could be very significant, as we'll talk about in a minute, I want to this fact about Fouad is just so illustrative about American weakness and American just pathetic nature of American foreign policy and American defense doctrine. Now, you might say, well, what's Fouad got to do? What's this guy got to do with America? This is number 3 in Hezbollah. It's an Israeli problem. Well, it turns out that Fouad was one of the people responsible for the bombing of the Marine barracks in 1983. He was one of the planners of that attack. He is one of the original founders of Hezbollah as a military operation. Fouad has a reward on him from the United States for $5 million. He is a wanted man, has been a wanted man since 1983. 1983. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that's a long time ago. That's like, 41 years ago? Over the last 41 years ago, the United States has not been able to eliminate this guy? They've not been able to take him out? Israel just did it. I mean, hopefully the U.S. is thanking Israel. Maybe Israel can get the reward money. But it's pretty nutty. I mean, this is a guy responsible for killing 241 Marines. And I don't think that counts. If he was responsible for that, he's probably involved with in the bombing of the embassy. Hezbollah was not created by Israel. I don't know where you got that. I didn't say that yesterday. I might have said something else. But, Israel did not create Hezbollah. Hezbollah was created by the Iranians, Iran, during Israel's occupation of Lebanon, and it was created by Iran in 1983. And the first act was first an attack on an Israeli base, but then the really first ones that had significant casualties were the attack on the American embassy and the attack on the American barracks, where 241 Marines were killed. So no, Israel had zero responsibility for Hezbollah. And Israel had some involvement in the creation of Hamas. We can talk about that if you want. You can ask about that. But no relations to no involvement, absolutely zero involvement in the creation of Hezbollah. So if I said that yesterday, I was mistaken, or I misspoke because I wouldn't have said it consciously, and I don't think I said it. I think you misunderstood. Anyway, hopefully they got him. We still don't have complete confirmation. I expect confirmation any minute, any hour now from the Lebanese. But Hezbollah is not going to sit on their hands after this. And you know, I mean, my view is, and I think you know my view. My view is this is unbelievably weak, and this is not an appropriate response. They should have done this as well. In a sense, they should have done this at the beginning of the war, not now. He should have been taken out years ago, decades ago. But anytime they knew where he was, should have been taken out. So I think this is very weak from Israel. I think, given what's going on in the Northern Front, given the constant attacks on Israel, given the 12 kids that died over the weekend, anything short of Israel basically invading Lebanon and taking southern Lebanon, taking it under Israeli control while eliminating as much of Hezbollah infrastructure in the rest of Lebanon, nothing short of that would have satisfied me. But Hezbollah is going to take this hard. I would expect a major escalation now in Hezbollah. This is the tit-for-tat theory of war. Somebody should write a book about this. Tit for tat. Yeah, you know, it's stupid war. So Israel has basically put its entire Air Force on high alert. This is very similar to when Iran was going to strike Israel, the number of missiles. You know, Hezbollah is now going to pull out its missile stock, its drone stock, and target Israeli areas. Haifa, the city of Haifa, where my brother lives and my parents live, and where I grew up mostly, is well in the range of most of the Hezbollah's weapon systems. And the city of Haifa has been placed on high alert. Hospitals have been placed on high alert. Residents told to be vigilant and to prepare to go to air raid shelters or to their safe rooms in their buildings. It's going to be, I think, a long night for Israelis in Haifa, waiting for the sirens to go off and seeing what happens. It is, I do expect the IDF to put airplanes in the air to try to shoot down anything that tries to approach. But as I showed you in the map yesterday, the distance from Lebanon to Haifa is very short. This is not like Iran, where you have, I don't know, minutes, hours in some cases, certainly hours when it came to the drones, to prepare to shoot these things down. Here we're talking about seconds to minutes. It's going to be very tough. We'll see exactly what happens, but it does seem like you know, a major Hezbollah attack is expected in Israel. I don't understand the Israeli strategy. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know if they want this major attack so then they can enter Lebanon, or they'll just take the attack and then pretend it's all over. I don't know. I don't get it, and I don't understand it. Maybe politically, they think that if they let Hezbollah do a major attack, then the Americans and the Europeans will give them cover. It's just insane. I mean, Israel should preempt. They should go in and crush them. Latest news, I'm just reading the news here. The body of Hezbollah Chief of Staff Fouad Shukr has been transported to a nearby hospital in Beirut. A security cordon by Lebanese forces had been placed around the Al-Rasul Al-Azam hospital in Beirut, where the body of the Hezbollah leader Fouad Shukr has arrived under heavy guard. So he's either very, very heavily injured or he's dead. According to Israeli sources, he's dead. I tend to believe Israeli sources. They wouldn't be securing a hospital just for, if nobody significant had gotten hurt. So I'll keep track of this. I'll let you know what happens. One of the really scary aspects of the potential war that we're seeing now potentially develop in Israel is, let's see, what was this? So now the Lebanese are saying, it's 60 injured, and there's a big airstrike on a suburb, and they're going to make this out about all civilian casualties and so on. Anyway, one of the things that really make this scary is that the president of Turkey, Erdogan, has basically stated that if Israel enters Lebanon, the Turks might send the military into Lebanon to help defend Lebanese territory. Now, this is scary for a bunch of reasons. I mean, geopolitically, this creates havoc in NATO. Turkey, of course, is a NATO country. Israel is a NATO ally. You have a NATO country attacking or attacking a NATO ally. I don't know how that works and what the United States does about it. Turkey has, as a NATO member, has sophisticated NATO weapon systems. They have F-35s, or they have, at least they have F-16s, and they have Abrams tanks, and they are well-trained military, with the best, or almost the best, of American technology. It's also a very large army. Turkey is a big country, a significantly larger population than Israel. It could really get ugly, and could really, I mean, what if Turkey launches against the U.S., against Israel? Would America participate in shooting down their missiles like they did when they shot down the Iranian missiles? Is this, two NATO countries going at each other? What exactly, so Erdogan's potential participation is a real complicating factor here, and a real geopolitical risk that the United States, I'm sure, is paying close attention to. And of course, Israel is, because Israel does not want to get into, imagine Turkey, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, the Houthis. I mean, imagine all of that. That is major. That is Israel struggling for survival. It really is. For Israel to take on all those militaries all at once, given modern warfare. In the past, I would have said, not a real problem. Iran's not going to send tanks to Israel. It's too far away. Nobody's going to let them cross. But the reality is they don't have to, with drones and ballistic and cruise missiles and drone swarms. I mean, this is why, God, I get so angry. I mean, I'm trying to hold back. This is why you have to question the strategy of the Israeli government. Why wasn't the target, certainly a few months ago when Iran hit Israel, why wasn't the immediate target after that every single drone manufacturing plant in Iran? Why wasn't the target the taking out of Iran's offensive capabilities vis-a-vis Israel? Why wasn't it take out their ballistic missiles, take out their drones, take out their ability to project force all the way to Israel? So that at least when you face Hezbollah, which was obvious you would have to at some point, Iran is less of a threat because you've taken out, I don't know, 50%, 90% of their drone and missile capabilities. I don't understand the unbelievable lack of strategic thinking, lack of long-term thinking, lack of thinking. I mean, lack of courage. Israeli government, at the end of the day, a bunch of cowards. Well, and now we'll see the consequence. We'll see if Hezbollah launches against Israel. Does it launch alone? Does it get support from Turkey? Does it get support from Iran? Is enough fear of U.S. cutting off arms? No, and it shouldn't be. The U.S. is not going to allow Israel to be destroyed. It's just not. The U.S. is not going to allow that. And nobody can argue after Israel is attacked by 300 drones and missiles that it has a right to do something. And if you don't target civilian targets, you just target drone manufacturing plants, all of them. You target ballistic missile sites and launches and all those things. If you just target those kind of targets, the U.S. would have not cut off anything. It just wouldn't have. But fear is a powerful emotion. It's a crippling emotion. It's unfortunately a politicians across the whole gamut. This is the dominant, when it comes to these kind of things, the dominant emotion. And it is, and it's suicide. It's suicide. It's suicide. We get the politicians we deserve. I don't know. They get the politicians that deserve. I don't deserve these politicians. So, I'm doing everything I can not to get them in the future, but I just don't see a way out. This is who we have. This is who we continue to have. It's pretty bad. So let's see what we do now. Let's see what happens now. I very much hope that Israel has the capability of knocking down whatever is thrown at it so that it doesn't reach the residential and industrial areas of Haifa. Maybe Hezbollah will choose to fire elsewhere in order to, because Haifa they believe, might be well protected. I don't know. But we will see. We will see. Shazbat's question. I mean, this is a good question. I'll get to Shazbat's questions. What exactly are Israeli politicians afraid of? What could be worse than their fellow citizens being killed and tortured? Moral condemnation by the intellectuals in their own culture. If the condemnation of the parents of the Israeli soldiers that would inevitably die when Israel invaded Lebanon, the fear of misstep strategically, that is, we enter Lebanon and things go badly. The fear of failure. I mean, last war with Hezbollah did not go well for Israel, did not go well for Hezbollah either, but it was not an easy victory for Israel. It was very, very hard. Lots of strategic mistakes. Horrible war. Another one of Netanyahu's pathetic wars. And it was devastating. And they didn't come out well, and there was a lot of criticism. Indeed, Israel's whole involvement in Lebanon since 1982 has been filled with misery and political and moral problems. But, they're afraid. They're afraid of their own shadow. These are politicians. They've been focused their entire career on power. And, the generals have to be careful. They don't want to misstep because their careers will be over. They might have political ambitions. We're talking about not necessarily rational people who have all kinds of is this not working properly? All kinds of, I'd say, irrational ambitions, and there is no, let me move this over here. They behave irrationally, and again, the fear is of themselves, the fear is of their own people, the fear is of so-called making a mistake, the fear is of, again, moral condemnation, the fear is of the intellectuals or whoever. It's, I don't know. It really is hard to imagine how they could ignore their fundamental role, their fundamental responsibility, which is, as you say, the protection of their own citizens, because of this. Okay, something is off here. All right, give me a second. I have to fix something. Marilyn, thank you for the sticker. David, we will get to your questions in a minute. Let's see if this will work. All right, I have to redo it. All right, it will work in the end. All right, so, this is where we are. This is where we are. I mean, the things, as I said, are developing as we speak, so I'll keep an eye on the teleprompter, as they say. I'll keep an eye on what's happening and let you know as I learn new things. Public opinion be damned. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice if people actually held that and actually believed that and actually did it. But we live in a world of narcissistic, second-handed politicians who want the favor of the masses, who want the favor of the public. So we will see. All right, one other story coming out of Israel. This is a pretty unpleasant story, unfortunately, but it shows kind of the fact that Israel is far from perfect and often not good, and that Israelis, many in Israel, can be really nasty, horrible characters. Anyway, it's turned out that some of the Palestinians who have been arrested in Gaza and elsewhere have been abused by IDF soldiers, both as they were transported to prisons and in prison itself. Indeed, one soldier was abused so badly, was beaten so badly and abused so badly that he landed up in hospital. Now, I can understand the temptation to go after these prisoners, particularly if any of these prisoners had anything to do with October 7th. You can imagine these soldiers wanting to extract revenge, wanting to express how sick they are of these people and how despicable they view these prisoners. But the reality is that it is not on them to punish them. There has to be a rule of law. And when you put on a uniform as a soldier, you have to follow orders, within reason, and you follow the conduct that you're expected to follow. Otherwise, discipline and everything else that a military depends on to fight a war breaks down. So I do not feel sorry for 1 second for these terrorists who have been abused. But I also don't want to be among soldiers who relish sadistically abusing people who cannot defend themselves. I do not like, I view as evil, gratuitous violence, even if it's towards somebody evil. However, given the circumstances, the main issue I have here is this is clearly a violation of the code of ethics. This is clearly a violation of their responsibilities in the military. Now, it gets worse. So 9 Israeli soldiers abused prisoners. I mean, it happened in Iraq with American soldiers. It happens in the heat of war. You'd expect it to happen in Israel more than anywhere else, given the nature of October 7th and what people experienced. And often these are relatives or friends, who are raped, tortured, and murdered by these people, of the soldiers themselves. And you can imagine that, you can imagine these soldiers doing it. But this is the difference between a civilized country and a non-civilized country. In Israel, when these accusations surfaced, the military police went and arrested the 9 IDF soldiers. They arrested them, and they were going to be tried in a military court. And basically, in that military court, it would be determined, did they violate the code of conduct? Did they do things that are the opposite of their responsibility and what they're supposed to do, given the uniform that they wear, given their responsibility to their job? Now, unfortunately, when the military police went to arrest these 9 soldiers, kind of a little mutiny ensued. And there was resistance. And this became a major event on this military base where this was happening. There was real confrontation, physical, violent confrontation. Once this got into the news in Israel, crazy religious right-wing nuts, many of them affiliated with one particular political party in the Israeli government, went to this military base and started rioting in favor of the soldiers and demanding that the military police not arrest them. That is, elements from within the Israeli government, the crazy right wing, crazy religious right of the Israeli government, but basically fighting with the military police and preventing them from executing their responsibility. Now, this is, of course, horrific. I mean, the chief of staff of the Israeli military had to go down there. They had to calm everybody down. But the idea, the demonstrators are fighting against the army in the middle of a war, preventing the military from doing their job, is just horrific. And it really surfaces as if we need more of this. We saw this before the war. We saw this with the whole judicial reform in Israel. What it's doing is it's surfacing, and this isn't Shas, David. This is not Shas. This is Ben Gvir and Smotrich or whatever his name is. This is the Orthodox, religious, messianic Israel. Israel should occupy all the lands. We should kick the Arabs out of everywhere. We are, they have a superiority complex. And, Israel is, the nation of God. And, yeah, we should torture Palestinians. Why not? This is a vast majority of Israelis do not support this. This is a small minority, but they're the minority that get their pictures. So we see them. They followed this to where these 9 prisoners are being held. 9 Israeli prisoners are being held. They are trying to break into the military base. Those pictures have gone around the world to show Israeli barbarism. Israelis demanding the release of torturers. And they've got their yarmulkes, and they've got, so they unequivocally Jewish. And it's just a disgrace for a civilized country. And, and yet they represent a political party within the Israeli government. So it's it really is bad. And again, at a time of war, I mean, Netanyahu said, calm down, everybody. But he didn't condemn them. He didn't condemn them. I mean, let the legal process, Israel is supposedly, and I defend it as, a country with the rule of law. Well, it needs to live up to that. Otherwise, why is it worth defending? If it's the bastion of civilization, yesterday we talked to Adam Ossoff, it was a great conversation, and I agree with him. Israel is the bastion of civilization. It is at the forefront of the battle for civilization. But these religious nuts battering down on the doors to try to protect, accused torturers, they're not civilization. They're not the defenders of civilization. So, it's very disappointing, but not surprising to see this happening in Israel right now at a time of war. And I mean, it's disappointing no matter what time it was, but in particular now at a time of war, at a time when the war could be escalating significantly into a second front that could be really place Israel in a real threat, All right, let's see. All right, nothing new there. Okay, so that is where we are with Israel, the Middle East. I mean, this will be a topic for the rest of the week, my guess is. And as this this whole thing evolves. Jennifer says the chat will not let her type barbarian. Just dramatically misspell it. And now Super Chat just won't let her in. So yeah, I mean, you're on some kind of blacklist. Because you try to type that barbarian. We need a code. We need a Yaron Brook get around Super Chat, get around chat restriction code. Right? B means C and C is D and something like that. We should all have code books. To figure this out. All right, let's see. What are we talking about here? I said they were accused torturers. I mean, I think it's likely true. So, true, they haven't been prosecuted yet. They're innocent until proven guilty. But likely it happened. Just because of the circumstances in Israel, it would be surprising in some sense if it didn't happen. Okay, let's see. What's our next story? Yeah, I mean, maybe some good news out of the UK. In the UK, an imam, Anjem Choudary, something like that, who was the leader of a banned terrorist group by the name of Al-Mujahirun, has just been convicted and jailed for life for being the head of this organization, for directing its activities. Even if he gets released early. He would not be released before age 85. This is one of the toughest sentences the UK has put on a leader of a local Islamist terrorist group. He seemed really shaken by this. I don't think he was expecting it. I don't think anybody was expecting it. The UK, as others, have been super lenient with the Islamists, even the terrorist Islamists. So this is good news that a court has basically put them in jail for the rest of his life. He's not going to come out. Let's hope they isolate him so he can't run things out of jail. Maybe put him with a bunch of Brits rather than with a bunch of Muslims. Maybe with a bunch of British criminals. I think those people know how to take care of Islamist terrorists. I don't think this was a free speech case. I don't think he's being jailed for what he said. I think this is clearly a case where he is being jailed for being involved and running and being responsible for a organization that engaged in violent activities. This is this organization was affiliated with ISIS and at least involved in a number of different acts of violence or potential violence that got caught before they were actually committed. So good. I mean, good riddance to him. It's a rare good sentence coming out of a court in Europe. I don't know if you're still allowed to call the UK Europe. I don't know if that counts. I don't know if my British friends will get angry with me for doing that. What do I need to do here? Yeah, I wanted to open that. All right, let's see. I'm going to move that over there. I have all my monitors here and all the pages and everything running around. Somebody was speculating how big my monitors are, or what monitors are. I actually have 3 in front of me, just for the fun of it. I have 3. I have, on my right, I have a 34-inch curved monitor. On my left, I have another 34-inch curved monitor. And in the center, right under my camera, I have a small, I think it's 15.6 diagonally monitor sitting, vertically, so that they can look this way. So when I turn my head all the way that way, I'm looking at the edge of this 34-inch curved monitor, and that way, it's the edge of that 34-inch curved monitor. And in both cases, there's content over there. I mean, all my content is there. Now, starting next week, where I'm going to be doing the show on the road for 2 months, I'm going to have very small monitors, very, very small monitors. So I'm going to have my laptop and this 15.6, which is a portable monitor that I'll be taking with me. So I should tell you, starting next week, I will be in Barcelona, Spain, although I will be traveling a little bit within Europe, but mainly in Barcelona, Spain, and I'll be doing shows from there. This will make the timing of the show a little uncertain. I still need to figure out kind of what my routine is going to be in Barcelona and what time I will be doing the shows. It's going to be evening or nighttime when I do the shows. There will be no interviews shows. At least I don't expect to do any interview shows during this period, just because of the difficulty in terms of time zones and all of that, and the fact that I only have these 2 monitors. It's going to be difficult. But I will be for 6 weeks in Barcelona, and then I expect, although there is, I guess, some uncertainty about this, I expect then to be for 10 days or so in Israel, and be reporting to you directly from Israel. There I'll be in hotels, and I'll be letting you know what I'm seeing, what is happening, and what is going on. I mean, somebody's asking me if this business of pleasure. I mean, it's pleasure, I guess, but I'm going to be doing the shows there, so I'm going to be doing all the stuff that I do here at home. I'm going to be doing there. It's an experiment. We're renting a place, a pretty small place. That's the other experimental part of this. It's basically a studio apartment with a bedroom and a living room without really a door between them. So we're going to be, my wife and I will be living in a pretty small living space, particularly small as compared to where we live now. So that's going to be an experiment. But the experiment is, do we enjoy, just breaking it up a little bit, doing it differently since I could work from anywhere, and spending a month, 2 months in different places around the world. So the first attempt at this is going to be Barcelona this summer, and then we'll see if we like it. Next year we'll go somewhere else. But at the end of the day, I'll be working. I'll be doing the show every day, I hope, I assume. My one concern is, the internet in the apartment we rented is supposed to be really good, but we will see how good it is. So my one concern is the internet going to be good enough for me to be doing this, regularly and constantly. So, yep. I just read this. This is kind of cool. It relates to Israel and attacking. So, if you remember, on July 20th, so what is it? 10 days ago, exactly 10 days ago, Israel attacked that big refinery, not refinery, but area in Yemen of the Houthis. They attacked a big oil depository and loading and unloading of oil in the port in Yemen. This has had, profound, what do you call it? I think financial consequences to the Houthi regime. It's crippled their ability to import-export, through parts of that port and certainly in the oil facility, and it destroyed a huge reservoir of oil. We saw it burning days afterwards. Well, since then, the Houthis have conducted 0 attacks against commercial or military vessels in the region. 0. And by the way, the United States, which is supposed to be protecting the travel of commercial ships through that region, could have done this 8 months ago. Much easier for the U.S. to do it than Israel, which had to fly a very, very long distance in order to actually do this. This is the kind of thing that Israel does. This is the kind of thing that a military, when it's serious, does. And it actually serves to, constrain, restrain the opposition. Now, hopefully Israel will do that more and more often to the Yemenites and maybe to the Lebanese as well. But at least it did it once and it worked. And it shouldn't surprise anybody that it worked. But this is the cowardice of politicians, going back to that topic, because they don't function through principle, because they don't understand the concept of principle and really thinking long term. They have a hard time understanding, it works, and it works every single time. Every single time. All right, let's see. As I said, I continue to monitor, but let's go to another topic. Let's shift topics a little bit and talk about Venezuela. So Venezuela, as you know, there was an election Saturday or Sunday, and both the opposition and the Maduro government are claiming victory. The opposition claimed they've actually received over 70% of the votes, that it wasn't even close. And yet, the ruling party, Maduro's socialist government, socialist fascist dictatorship, is claiming they won by 51.5% or something like that. There's no doubt in my mind the opposition won this vote. It doesn't really matter. Maduro needs to go one way or the other. And so there have been demonstrations in the streets. The people are out there There have been confrontations. I don't know how violent they've gotten so far, but it looks like the Venezuelans are fed up. They're actually going out there. Now we'll see if they're really willing to take the risks involved in a true coup, in getting rid of Maduro for good. People are going to have to be willing to go out there in the face of a military that is committed to Maduro, because Maduro's basically handed the military all of the economic resources of the country. So let us hope that the Venezuelan people have the courage, the audacity, and the tools to actually go out there and fight for their own liberty, for their own freedom, and to eviscerate this regime. This regime needs to go. It should have already been gone by now, but it definitely needs to go. And it would be fantastic if the Venezuelan people actually pull it off. Edward is still delusional. Some people are still delusional. They don't give up on the delusion. They hold on to the delusion. And he's saying, oh, same thing was happening in the United States in 2020. The election was stolen. I won't comment, just other than to ridicule that position, because it is not worthy of anything other than ridiculing. It's a pathetic position to compare Venezuela to the United States, and to claim the election was stolen after all this time. God, you have to be committed to the man. That personality worship really is going strong. All right, Glenn, thank you for the $50. Really, really appreciate it. Glenn got us past our goal for the first hour. We still got at least one more hour to go, maybe an hour and a half, we'll see, to go. So feel free to jump in here and help us get there. Thank you, Glenn, again. Let's see. That was Venezuela. So again, monitoring the situation. We can hope. My thoughts are with the Venezuelan people. And let's see. It looks like there's some military commander in Venezuela is not calling for action. It's not clear on which side, and if there's going to be. Somebody says Alan Dershowitz once argued for torture. You want to? Yeah, I mean, I'm all for torture. I have no problem with torture, for a purpose. Torture gratuitously is pathetic and horrible and despicable and should be punished. I'm all for violence if necessary in war, but gratuitous violence should not be engaged in war, should not be part of war. So it's the gratuitous nature of the torture that I'm against. But torture to get information that is vital, torture to save people's lives, torture in the right context, and for a clear purpose that is necessary for victory, waterboarding or whatever. I have no problem with torture in those circumstances. But the context, the circumstances are crucial. If you ever saw 24, do you ever see 24, the TV series 24? Well, what's his name? Jack something? He often tortures people. He kind of says, okay, a nuke is going to blow up in Los Angeles. I could let it just blow and have millions of people die, or I could put a bullet in this guy's knee and he'll tell me how, Jack Bauer, thank you, Zach. I'll put a bullet in this guy's knee and he'll help me defuse the bomb. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. You put a bullet in the bad guy's knee or whatever you need to do. And it even gets worse, I think. In the last season, he really tortures somebody. So torture with a purpose, the purpose being the saving of lives, the purpose being victory, I think is legit. Torture, just the joy of watching somebody else suffer, illegitimate, and is never right. It is one of the differences between civilization and no civilization, right? Is torture effective, though? I mean, I've talked about this many years. But the answer to that is yes. Now, I know there is a huge amount of literature that says torture is not effective. I strongly believe, I can't prove this, but I strongly believe that that is propaganda. That is a cover for the whole anti-torture thing. I know, I think from close to firsthand experience, that torture has saved lives, that torture has brought information that has saved lives, that torture has brought information that is valid and significant. Now, you have to know how to do it. You have to be smart about it. And it's not the kind of torture of the Middle Ages, and a lot of it is often just a threat. We'll get you the information. But the idea that people under Paine will somehow not give you information, I just don't think that's true. And again, and now 24 is just a show, absolutely. But I think the scenarios in 24 are the kind of scenarios in which, and the kind of information they get are pretty I think pretty legit, pretty realistic, put it that way. So I believe torture is effective. I know there are a lot of people who believe it's not, but I think that research is mostly done in order to provide cover for the anti-torture people to say, no, it's also not effective, as against the kind of the pragmatists, which are the people who support torture. I don't support it from a pragmatic perspective. I support it from a moral perspective. But most people who support torture support it from a pragmatic perspective. Leonard says physical torture never works. It's just not true. Just not true. And I can tell you from almost personal, almost firsthand knowledge, it's just not true. Israel, in its past, I don't think it's done today, got incredibly valuable information by doing exactly that. So did the Nazis when they tortured, not to compare Israel to Nazis, but so did the Nazis torturing American soldiers. They often broke. John McCain. Think about what the North Vietnamese did to some American troops. Did some of those troops break and give information? Absolutely. We know that, and they've written about it. So they did provide information, and so it's just not true that it doesn't work. That is not. I don't think those arguments hold. There's so many examples where it has worked that it's hard to make the case that it didn't. Yeah, Hanoi was hell. It was hell. All right, let's take a look here. I wanted to quickly glance at this news story. Right, Venezuela Army captains Javier and Juan Carlos Nieto Quintero have called on the military to intervene in the country's political situation, claiming that a new president has been elected. This comes amidst widespread allegations of electoral fraud and manipulation in the recent presidential election. Opposition leaders, including Maria Machado, have also urged the military to uphold their duty to protect the people and support the democratic process. The situation remains tense as international organizations and observers question the legitimacy of the election results, the official election results. So we could see different units within the Venezuelan army taking different positions here, and you could see a kind of a civil war. Fenn Harper says torture as an end in itself is irrational and psychotic. I agree completely. All right, let's see. What else do we want to talk about? What else have I promised to talk about? War. This is U.S. war, not foreign wars. So there was a bipartisan congressional commission I don't know what the difference is between committee and a commission, but commission that was put together in order to evaluate America's war readiness, in particular vis-a-vis China, but also what would happen if you had a multi-front war. That is, if you had a war with China, but also challenges from Iran and from Russia. And is the United States ready for such a war? And the Commission's conclusion is pretty straightforward. Now, you have to take these things with a grain of salt. This is a commission of politicians or run by politicians. There are strong incentives for the conclusion that they come to. These are incentives that involve some people wanting to spend more in the military. They need justification, this kind of stuff. These kind of conclusions provide them with this justification. But overall, I think this is a real warning sign. I think there's some truth to this. I think we always overestimate the strength of our enemies, but it's better to overestimate it than underestimate it. See October 7th. So the conclusion is that the United States military, quote, lacks both the capabilities and the capacity required to be confident it can deter and prevail in combat. So in the judgment of this commission, the report finds that collaboration between Russia, China, North Korea, Iran is increasing the chances of multi-front conflict, and that the U.S. would have trouble with such a conflict. It would have trouble in such a fight. It would not be an easy victory for the United States. This is a study that was commissioned in 2022, so they've been going at it for over a year. The report came out yesterday, and they say they found big gaps between Defense Department's ambitions of deterring or prevailing in a major conflict and reality. One of the problems they find, and this is where, at least in my mind, it gets a little suspicious, is the current state of U.S. defense industrial base as compared to China. China can produce a lot more missiles. China can produce a lot more ammunition. It can produce a lot more stuff. And the United States would have to really require massive investment and do it pretty fast to be able to match the kind of industrial capacity, military industrial capacity, that China has today. And I think much of that is true. I think the United States' advantage has been, should continue to be, should be emphasized as an advantage in quality, not quantity. It should be an advantage of that, but even there, with these hyper or sonic weapons that the Chinese have, I just listened to a talk by a guy who wrote a book about this. What's the book called? I think I wrote it down. Let's see if I wrote it down somewhere. Accessible, maybe not. Unit X. Unit X. I'm planning to read the book. But suppose the Unit X is about the ability of the United States to deal with the Chinese threat, about the fact that the United States is actually falling behind China on certain missile technology and certain technologies more broadly as they apply to defense. It has nothing to do with cheap labor. It's irrelevant to this. But, what we really need is an investment is a strategic review of our defense capabilities. And I don't believe this, political, commission has given us that. It's maybe the beginning of something. But what we need is a real and strategic look and a rethinking of how we invest our money. Like, do we need more aircraft carriers? Or do we need to invest in a lot of submarine drones, of, small boats that can cause huge amount of damage very quickly, hard to detect, and cheap to produce, so you can make a lot of them. The same with submarines. Not to mention drone swarms that the Russians are showing and the Ukrainians are showing are quite effective in a modern battlefield. So should we be focused on big weapon systems? I would be focused right now. Nobody asked me. I don't know what the Pentagon is actually doing. But if they ask me, I would say focus should be on two things, two strategic things. One is massive investment in defense, in aerial defense, or defense against submarines and drones and all the different types of drones, but particularly aerial. So lasers to push down weapons, weapon systems that can knock down ballistic missiles out in the stratosphere. The Israelis have the Arrow 3. The United States should have at least that capability, if not much better capabilities. A lot of investment should be in whether we can use lasers to do this, and whether we can then deploy lasers on ships to do it. Whether we have enough, we can provide the ships with enough power. You'd have to have them nuclear-powered ships. I mean, there's a lot of thinking about how do you design the best, most impregnable missile defense system. So that's step one. And step two should be massive investment in drone technologies. Again, of all sorts, but I'd say primarily air and sea. And with regard, if China is the biggest threat that we face, I would look primarily at different platforms to go after sea. And then finally, of course, advanced missile technology that can put the United States on the offensive. My guess is the defensive capabilities of a country like China are far less than ours. Far less than ours. All right. Now we're seeing some explosions in Iraq, in some of the paramilitary bases that are run by the Shiites, by the Iran-based. That could be the Americans. It could be the Israelis. We're also seeing a 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit with a bunch of ships are approaching kind of the Lebanese-Israel coast, kind of staying close to Crete. I mean, their primary function right now is preparing in order to assist in the evacuation of foreign nationals from Lebanon. So we're seeing everything heightened in terms of what's going on in Lebanon itself. There's also now video of the destruction of the building in which this senior number 3 in Hamas was killed today. They basically took down the whole part of a building. And I assume he's dead. I think it would surprise everybody if he's not dead, but I assume he is dead. All right, I'll keep monitoring. Let's see, Shahzad, thank you for the sticker. Apollo Zeus, thank you for buying memberships. That's great. I'm sure the people who receive the membership are incredibly thankful. Colt Savage, thank you for the sticker. Really, really appreciate it from you guys. We're doing pretty well. We still have a ways to go for the second hour, but we're on good track. Okay, a few other items that we'll get to, and then we'll turn to your questions. As you probably know, if you listened to yesterday's my discussion with Adam Ossoff, President Biden has announced a series of proposals to reform the Supreme Court. He proposes implementing an 18-year term limit for Supreme Court justices and an enforceable code of ethics. According to Biden, term limits would help ensure that the court's membership changes with some regularity. That would make timing for court nominations more predictable and less arbitrary, which is what Biden wrote in his op-ed in the Washington Post to try to defend this. He also called for a constitutional amendment that would effectively undo the High Court's ruling earlier this month, on a president's immunity for certain acts while in office. Several of the proposed changes involve changing the Constitution. The Constitution is pretty clear that the Supreme Court nominations is a lifelong appointment. You would have to change the Constitution in order to put term limits on the Supreme Court. That is not happening. The Code of Ethics make it enforceable. I don't know what you would have to do. Maybe it's constitutional. Maybe you'd have to change the Constitution. Maybe you would just have to pass a law by Congress. I don't know. Neither of those is going to happen. A law in Congress would have to get 60 votes in the Senate. That's not happening. So far, the Republicans hold the House. That's not happening. Biden's on the way out, one way or the other. So this is really mostly virtue signaling. This is to be able to tell all those Democrats who wanted him to stack the court like FDR did, look, I did something, I tried, I did my best. It's really kind of for the history books and for his for the left part of this party. Maybe it's in support of Kamala, I don't know, but certainly none of this is actually going to happen. It's all just a fantasy in Biden's head. Mary Eileen said Biden wrote an op-ed. Biden doesn't do anything. I mean, Biden is senile. I mean, he's not there. Biden is not capable of sitting down and writing op-ed. I mean, he's barely capable of standing up and conveying a coherent sentence. But his people can write an op-ed, just like his people are basically making decisions about the country and about what the future of this country is. I mean, that is the great virtue of him stepping down, is that at least he won't be around for another 4 years, pretending to be president. Right? At least if we get Kamala, if we get Trump, they will be presidents. They will be the people making decisions. Biden is not quite there, and hasn't been for a while. The story about the sniper who tried to assassinate Trump is just getting more and more bizarre, in the sense that the more information we get, the more obvious it is just the depth and the extent to which the police and the Secret Service were incompetent and just, I mean, we always said they were incompetent, but just the failures on top of failure, on top of failure, on top of failure. Unbelievable. It turns out now that law enforcement actually knew that the sniper, they didn't know he was a sniper, but they identified him, strange person, a kid, learning around the building we are in. Even one text message in a group chat of local officials said that he had a rangefinder and was looking towards the stage. And he writes, if you want to notify Secret Service snipers to look out, I lost sight of him. And it's like, I lost sight of him. Okay. Unbelievable. In the meantime, it does seem like Donald Trump has agreed to a private interview with the FBI as part of their investigation into what's going on. I don't know what they're going to learn from that. But yeah, I mean, it really is crazy what we're learning about the incompetence of these people. Scary stuff. All right, what do we want to cover? Let's see. We're at 4:10. We have, how many questions do we have? Yeah, we have quite a few. All right, let's just do this quickly, and then we'll go to your questions. All right. I mean, this summer, it seems like the U.S. power grid, the electricity, is really being challenged. In the United States of America, in the 21st century, we are seeing outages becoming way more common than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. Consumption hasn't gone up that much, certainly not by individuals and homes. Partially, maybe things are warmer, so people are using more air conditioning, but that would raise consumption. So it's not clear how the weather is affecting the fact that the grid is not functioning. A lot of this has to do with the age of the grid. A lot of the existing grid was built 50 and 60 years ago. And, you know, it has a lifespan. And it's surprising we're not rebuilding it because technology has also improved dramatically. If we built it today, its capacity would be dramatically higher. It's also true that because of climate change, because of climate change hysteria, utilities are under immense pressure to connect renewable energy sources. This requires building even more transmission lines to carry electricity and more substations to regulate voltage. When the basic core of the system, the transmission lines, the grid itself, before these additions, is already being stretched. And now we're adding electricity when we don't really need it, during the day usually. We're sending out branches into the middle of nowhere where these fields of, solar panels and windmills exist. We're building more substations instead of improving our grid, rebuilding the transmission lines, upgrading everything. Some utilities are doubling their demand forecast for the next 5 years. That's not because of you. That is primarily because of, I'd say, two things. AI, which is going to require massive amounts of power, massive amounts of electricity, and electric cars. I've talked about this. I talked about this for a long time. Electric cars. Maybe that's a good idea, but where's that electricity going to come from? How are you going to get it to the car? Our grid cannot handle a doubling of demand in the next 5 years. It's pretty insane. Pretty insane. If we were smart, we'd be building nuclear power plants like crazy. If we were smart, we'd be rebuilding the grid. If we had capitalism, those things would be happening. But all of those things require government investment, government initiative, government programs, and the people who think the least about the long term, the people who think the least about investing in the long term, investing in real infrastructure, is government. So we have massive need for electricity, growing dramatically, and that growth is somewhat powered by government mandates around solar panels and around electric cars. And what we don't have is the willingness to invest in all this to actually make it possible for us to sustain all of this growth. All right, a few other stories. Germany is again contracting. It saw a contraction in the second quarter of the year. GDP actually shrank by 0.1%. This is in contrast to the United States, and I know you guys are very negative in the U.S. economy, but in contrast to the United States, which grew at an annual rate of 2.8%, the German economy is shrinking. It's much weaker than what people expected. German GDP has grown 0.2%. It grew 0.2% in the first quarter of the year, so it's up 0.1% over the first half of the year. That's pretty pathetic. It's basically completely stagnated. This is a real reckoning for Germany. There's going to have to be a massive restructuring of the German economy, deregulation, and bringing in market incentives to determine which direction to go. Germany is in trouble of losing the electric car race to China. Germany is in trouble of losing the precision tool manufacturing to China. And Germany does not have the kind of service-based advantages that the United States and the UK have, where much of the value added that is added in those economies, the US and the UK, comes from what are called services. Design of chips rather than making the chips. Design of an iPhone rather than actually assembling an iPhone. The real value added stuff. The design is the value added, not the assembly. And the Germans don't have that. They've gone all in on the actual manufacturing. And this is hurting them right now. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the German economy adapts. All right. What did I want to see? What was I looking at? I was looking at something. Anyway, forget that. Let's see. One other thing related to electric cars, as we've talked about on the show several times, the Chinese have a huge advantage in electric cars. They're building large quantities of them. They're fairly good, and they are super cheap. They've got a scale going for them. And they are starting to dominate world markets. Not in the United States because of 100% tariff and all kinds of other barriers. Not in Europe because of various barriers and threatened tariffs. But take a country like Thailand or other places in Asia. Thailand has experienced a huge influx of Chinese cars. And it's completely reshaping the cars that are being driven on Thai roads. And of course, this is not just Thailand. This is representative of what you'd call the second and third world. China's filled with Chinese cars, billboards for Chinese cars. And the damage here is primarily done to, or competitive damage, to Japanese car makers who dominated the market in places like Thailand. And now Japan is way behind on electric cars. Chinese firms, instead of importing the cars from China, they're buying land and building car factories. So they are building the factories in Thailand, partially in order to sell into the Thai market. But more importantly, I think, to be able to export from Thailand to the rest of the world, and therefore try to avoid the barriers that are going to be raised on cars from China. They're way ahead of the Japanese, and of course, the United States it doesn't have as big of a presence in Asia as the Japanese do, but sales of Nissan, Mazda, Mitsubishi, Toyota are plummeting as compared to the Chinese. So China's going to flood the markets with these. Chinese companies are going to build factories all over Asia and all over. I think they'll build factories in Mexico. They'll build factories in Brazil. They'll build factories in Africa, and they'll export their cars from there. And if the American auto industry or the European auto industry think they can somehow survive without dramatic change, the Chinese auto industry, they're deluding themselves. They are deluding themselves. All right. That is the news on this July 30th, almost the end of July, 2024. All right, a few reminders about our sponsors. Tomorrow we will start. Well, we have a new sponsor, but we will do that. We will start that new sponsor off tomorrow. I need to put the website in the description and all of that. All right, but I want to remind everybody about Chicago and about We the Living movie. As I mentioned in the past, the We the Living movie is exceptional. It is the best movie made from an Ayn Rand novel. It is beautifully done, beautifully acted. Highly, highly, highly recommend that you watch the movie. Right now, there's going to be a screening of it in just a few days, in August 3rd. I guess that's Saturday, on August 3rd. This is going to be in Chicago at the Facets Theater. The doors open at 5:30. You can buy tickets online at wethelivingmovie.com, wethelivingmovie.com. And again, it's a phenomenal movie. If you love We the Living, if you like Ayn Rand, then you're going to love this movie. It's got some spectacular acting, beautiful cinematography, an incredible story that involves Mussolini, the fascists, the Nazis, Goebbels, and so on. That story will be told by Duncan Scott, who is responsible for producing this cleaned up version of the movie. It's been cleaned up in terms of the film, but also the audio is being improved significantly, and important for all of us who don't speak Italian, the subtitles are being made clearer, so it's easy to read the subtitles. The movie's in Italian. It was made without Ayn Rand's permission, but she got to see it in the late 1960s. Duncan Scott actually worked with her to edit it and to do the subtitles, so she was heavily involved. So I encourage you to go to Chicago and watch the movie. Go, go, go. Don't miss it. It's a real opportunity. Now, other cities are also going to have the movie. So, if you're not sure, check out the website, wethelivingmovie.com, and see if the movie's coming to a city. I think there's one in New Mexico. So, but check it out. Wherever it is, you should go see it. All right, let's see. Of course, the Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor of the show. The Ayn Rand Institute, as I think you guys know, it has the Ayn Rand University. This is the premier place to study Ayn Rand's ideas, really anywhere in the world. You get some of the best teachers of objectivism active today, teaching the philosophy. You can take it. You can sign up for classes. Some of you can even sign up for something called Ayn Rand University. I forget the name. Where you don't have to take classes live. You can watch the videos, but you still got to do the homework and you still got to have office hours with a live professor. A lot of people are excited about this. Yes, you can also audit classes. But Flex, thank you, Juan and Mary Elaine, for reminding me. It's called Ayn Rand University Flex, for flexibility. So sign up. It's fantastic. I'm teaching right now. Mary Elaine is actually auditing my class. I'm teaching a class on public speaking. I'm having a lot of fun. I think the auditors are having a lot of fun. I'm not sure the students are. No, the students are having a lot of fun. Maybe I'm tough on them. I don't know. Maybe I'm not tough enough on them. I have to watch not being too soft on them. But it is you can sit in all these classes, or you can actually be a graded student in all these classes. You've got to try. So go to aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here. And then VPN Express. You remember, if you sign up for VPN Express using vpnexpress.com/Yaron, you get an extra 3 months of free service. I think you get 3 months anyway, and this way you get 6 months. ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN. Is it VPN Express or ExpressVPN? It's expressvpn.com/Yaron. expressvpn.com/Yaron. Sign up. I use it all the time. I even use it sometimes on my Apple TV to make the Apple TV think I'm in the U.S., to stream certain things. So it's a great way to, when you're traveling, to hook up to your Netflix. but it is, and it also increases privacy significantly, particularly when you're traveling and you want to do bank transactions, stuff like that. Use a VPN, much safer, much smoother. All right, let's see. What else? Oh, of course, Alex Epstein. AlexEpstein.com, AlexEpstein.substack.com. Alex Epstein, the world's number one expert on oil. Well, actually, fossil fuels, on climate change, on environmentalism. Number one expert. You can get talking points from him, answers to every single question you might have on these issues. The guy, many of our politicians, not many, but a few at least, of our politicians in Washington, D.C., their subscribers. You should be a subscriber. AlexEpstein.substack.com. There's also an Alex AI. Alex AI. So, Juan asked an interesting question, even though it's not in the super chat. I'm going to take it because it's a good question and it's an interesting question and a valuable question for somebody beginning out in objectivism. He says, I'm reading Objectivism by Leonard Peikoff. Will that be enough to be an objectivist? I mean, I laugh because the answer is so obviously no, because you don't become an objectivist by reading a book. Yaron, what are you talking about? You don't become an objectivist by reading a book. What matters is what you do with what you read. To be an objectivist, you have to integrate the ideas that you're reading about in the book into your life. You have to first agree with them. But in order to agree with them, really, you have to integrate them. You have to analyze them. You have to reduce them. You have to chew them. You have to concretize them. You have to make them yours. And that takes work. So reading Objectivism by Leonard Peikoff is a must and a great start. But studying objectivism, thinking about objectivism, again, integrating, is a must. And part of that is listening to more lectures on YouTube, elsewhere, at Ayn Rand University, reading a lot of the nonfiction books, reading Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead. In many respects, becoming an objectivist is a lifelong mission of learning, of educating yourself, of applying the philosophy to every aspect of your life, which requires you to constantly better understand the philosophy. All right, let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any breaking news. One report says Israel may be headed for several days of heavy fighting versus Hezbollah, says the military journalist Naval, Israeli. IDF on high alert on all fronts, air defenses in position, large forces deployed near the Lebanese border. Netanyahu has just held a security assessment with Israel's defense chiefs at the headquarters in the Kiryat in Tel Aviv. There was supposed to be a changeover of intelligence, military intelligence chiefs. That has been delayed because of the escalation right now. So the general will stay in his post until there's more visibility into what is going on. Again, I will keep this in front of me and keep you updated just in case something dramatic happens. All right, let's jump in. David has done three basically $50 questions, or $57.22 questions. So we're going to go over those questions and then see where that takes us. That does remind me that we are still pretty short of where we need to be, about $120 short of our goal for the second hour. We're in our second hour, so we only have 30 minutes to make this goal for the second hour. So please consider doing a sticker. Stickers really help to get to the goal without asking a question. But you can, also, of course, also open. You can also ask a question. Use the super chat. David says I should open an account in a Costa Rican bank in the Costa Rican currency, or colones, or whatever they call them. just for his super chats. So I guess I'll have to work on that. It would be a lot more valuable to me if we could find a way around YouTube. Is YouTube's ridiculous, what do you call it, conversion ratio of currencies. So it would be nice if we could avoid that. All right, let's take David. So we are still $120 short of the second hour. Please consider supporting the Yaron Brook Show. What you get here, you won't get anywhere else. And, it wouldn't take much for everybody listening right now to allow us to get to our target. So please consider doing that. I also had a goal. I kind of didn't promote it, but I did have a goal of adding subscribers to Patreon and adding subscribers to PayPal on yaronbrookshow.com/membership. Please consider, particularly in the next couple of days, as this month ends and the new month begins, particularly on Patreon, because they distribute the money early in the month, to become a regular donor on Patreon. That'd be terrific. It would be great if we got like 10 new donors, new supporters, monthly supporters at any level you want. But this, hopefully in the next couple of days, next 2 or 3 days, on Patreon, that'd be great to see a nice rise in the support I'm getting on Patreon and on PayPal. All right, David, if you recommended U.S. closing its many military bases around the world, are you advocating for an end of Pax Americana? Well, I'm not sure there ever was a Pax Americana, but yes, I'm advocating for America needs to get out of every little conflict around the world, and it needs to do a strategic evaluation of which conflicts are urgent, which conflicts are important, right? And which conflict require actual military bases in different places. So it requires a real strategic thinking. Who's the enemy? And in order to deal with the enemy, where do I need to be? Without overstretching, without exhausting my resources, without spending too much money, where do I need to be? Do I need a base in Guam? Probably. Guam is also U.S. territory. And Guam is unbelievably strategic for the defense of the Pacific Ocean, of the Western Pacific, and of the China Sea. So in any conflict with China, you'll want a base in Guam, right? It's also easily within missile range from mainland China. So Guam is probably the first places to go up in smoke if a conflict with China starts. But, U.S. also has bases in Japan and South Korea. So the first thing is, who are the enemies? And then a strategic assessment of how do we deal with the enemy? How do we deal with him quickly, decisively, so we can actually close bases and bring the troops home? So, for example, Islamism is an enemy. Now, does Islamism being an enemy require us to keep troops in, 50, 60, 70 countries, which is what we do today? We have troops in all of the kind of, south of the Sahara countries, the border of the Sahara, where ISIS and Al-Qaeda are. We have troops in many Southeast Asian countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and other places where we fear there might be ISIS. And we could, alternatively, focus on destroying the Iranian regime, helping Israel destroy Hamas, Hezbollah, and making and conveying a clear message to Islamist enemies that we will do whatever is necessary in order to defend ourselves, and we will destroy their capabilities of attacking our interests and bring all the troops home. That's what we should do. The only reason we have them out there is we have no deterrence. They don't believe we'll do anything. They're not afraid of us. We need to establish deterrence, reestablish deterrence. In other words, reestablish fear. Do we need to be a member of NATO? Maybe. Maybe we need that alliance. But we should reconceive of it in terms of maybe not just the European defense alliance, but also affecting Asia vis-a-vis the, the Chinese threat. So, we need to be strategic about it. And if we're strategic about it, then I think we can bring a lot of the troops home. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And then the other thing we need to do is, okay, we've got these enemies, but beyond these enemies, what is the job of the U.S. military? And I would say the one job of the Navy, which has been its job since the British Empire disappeared, is protecting the shipping lanes of the world. Trade is vital to U.S. security. Okay, what kind of a Navy? How big of a Navy? Where does it need to be stationed in order to secure shipping lanes? And maybe that's Pax Americana. And then you have as many ports, and maybe you don't need to have a presence in those ports. Maybe it's just ports that are friendly to America and they let you use them. But you have as many ports as necessary in order to preserve the shipping lanes in the world. But we don't even do that. Look at the Houthis. So mostly what I'm arguing for is a strategic assessment, and then only keeping troops where it's absolutely necessary to achieve U.S. strategic goals. And I think that would reduce the number of countries dramatically. All right, let's see. Jeremy asks, and I'm taking this out of order, I know, but Jeremy asks, are you counting membership gifts towards the goal? I am not, only because I have no way to add them up. Right now, I have a means by which I add up the super chats and the stickers, but no means by which to add up the memberships. Now, the memberships are becoming a greater and greater source of support during the shows, so I probably should find a way to do that. Right now we have probably 7, 8, probably around 10 memberships. 10 memberships would constitute about $50, so that's great because that is, again, directly adding and making it easier. With those $50, we only have, I think, $69 to make our goal. So that really does help a lot. So, and thank you, Jeremy, for doing the 5 memberships. And I think Apollo here has done about 5. He does them one at a time. And that is, it really is terrific. I'm hoping that those of you who receive the membership will then renew the membership. And one of the things you should do with the membership is go to the membership-only shows and go and join them. Go watch them while you have the month free membership. Hopefully that'll convince you to stay on. All right, David asks, Sarah Paine of Naval War College is very pro-containment of bad actors via maritime alliance. Do you agree with her? Yes, I mean, I absolutely do. I think we should have, the United States, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, maybe Indonesia, Malaysia, and India. That should be a maritime alliance. That should be an alliance dedicated to self-defense. Australia, maybe New Zealand, certainly Australia. That should be an alliance dedicated to preserving and maintaining the shipping lanes in the Western Pacific and in the Indian Ocean. An alliance clearly set up to prevent Chinese dominance of the sea lanes. And that reduces the load from the U.S. Navy. It expands the responsibility, and it binds us to countries that are basically free, and that should be the criteria. I don't think we should have Vietnam in the alliance. I think we should only have countries that are basically free, and you'd have to make that assessment. Are these countries basically free? It's easy. South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, Singapore, by the way, and Australia. You'd have to decide whether Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia are basically free, probably, and whether they would join the alliance. All right, David also asked, Newt Gingrich said on Dispatch podcast that Republicans need to win popular vote by more than 4% to counter voter fraud. Is Newt a charlatan? Yeah, I mean, I think he is. I mean, I don't think he used to be, but I think they've all become charlatans. I think they're all playing this game. And why would you assume that only the Democrats commit fraud? I mean, are the Republicans not committing fraud? I mean, I believe there's always fraud, some. Why is it? I don't believe it's only in one direction. I believe in this election, it's actually more likely the Republicans will commit fraud than Democrats because of the kind of people the Republicans have put in charge of the electoral process in many states. And, this is just kind of fear-mongering. It's just BS. And yeah, I mean, so I don't see on what basis he's saying that. Again, there's always fraud. But on what basis is, on what basis is it only one-sided and is systematic and is big enough to make a difference? 4% is a huge number. Huge. A ballistic missile launched from Iraq was intercepted earlier, approaching Israeli airspace near the city of Eilat. So yeah, I mean, air defense systems in Israel on alert and are ready for action. Jennifer, all the best to your family in Israel. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm so sick of these bastards and bad people. So I can say bastards even if not bastards, barbarians. How about barbarian bastards? That's good. I'm so sick of these barbarian bastards and bad people. Even though you can't write that in a super chat on YouTube, because YouTube is, restricting that. I can say it on YouTube, and they have not stopped me from doing that. Interesting, isn't it? I don't quite get it. All right, thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. Andrew, three $20 super chat questions really get us to our target if we count the membership. So please consider doing some $20 questions to get us over the threshold into that third hour, which would require another $250. It's significant. Barbarian is fine as chat. Jennifer said they wouldn't let her write it in the super chat. All right, Andrew says, do you attribute blame to America for not directly fighting the enemies after 9/11 for continued Islamist terror attacks? Yes, and yes. Absolutely, it's America's fault. America's fault in not defining the enemy properly. America's fault in not executing the war properly, in not going after the real enemies, in playing pretend, in playing bury the head in the sand, in playing evasion. Yes, the continued growth and success of Islamic terrorism is the responsibility, at least the moral responsibility of America for not doing what was necessary after 9/11. But even before that, for not doing what was necessary after the fatwa in 1989 of Ayatollah Khomeini, but even before that, for not doing what was necessary when the Iranian regime took the embassy hostage, which was an act of war which America did not respond to, ever. And that only emboldened the Iranians to engage in more and more acts that resulted in the near term in 1983 in the bombing of the American embassy and the barracks. 241 Marines died in the barracks, on top of the people who died in the embassy. And America did nothing. Again, nothing. Zero. American life is expendable. And then after 9/11, should have been a wake-up call. Should have been demands of protesters in the streets. They, again, did very little. And that's where we are today. That's where we are today. All right, let's see. Where are we? We've got a bunch of these $2 to $10 questions. All right, Hezbollah is saying that that you can expect an official statement from them in the next few hours, anytime in the next few hours. So, yeah. Yeah. All right, let's see. Wow, I just saw this graph. I wonder if I can show you this graph. Let me try to show you this graph. This is a cool graph. I mean, cool in a sad way, but it's an amazing graph. Let me show you this. Sometimes I just come across stuff that is just amazing. Let's see, where is it? It's not that, it's this. Yeah, okay. Do you see that graph? That's real GDP per capita. Real GDP per capita. Look at that decline. Look at that sharp decline. That is Venezuela. That is Chavez and Maduro. And you can see that really GDP per capita in Venezuela has not really increased since, what is it, 1980 or 1970 something. It's way down from there. We're now, GDP per capita is at the same level as it was in 1940. They've gone back to 1940. This is one of the richest countries in Latin America in 1970s. And while Maduro artificially drove that up to, you could see that in the early 2000s, drove it up artificially. Again, government spending counts as GDP. You can see what happens ultimately. That's a pretty powerful graph. But yet, the socialists want to try it again. Next time, they'll get it right. Next time, they promise they'll get it right. Don't worry. We know what we're doing. They tell us. We're going to get it right. All right. Let's see. Islam Ali. Should POWs get rights provided in a captured area? No. I mean, I don't know what rights mean. You've engaged in a war. You've engaged in violence. You don't have rights as you're a violent criminal. You don't have rights. Now, there's a process, and you should be treated, you shouldn't be tortured. There shouldn't be gratuitous violence against that. But I reject the idea of international law. I reject the idea of international humanitarian law. I reject the idea of the Geneva Conference. I mean, laws like this are meaningless. There's no mechanism to enforce them. The bad guys never participate in this. The bad guys always violate them. The rules should be the rules of the country that has imprisoned them. Israel has laws internally about how to treat prisoners. They have tribunals. They have their own method of dealing with them. Individual soldiers should not be violating those rules. They should not be taking the initiative into their own hands. That is wrong. They shouldn't be doing it. But it's not an issue of international laws, and it's not an issue at this point of rights. I mean, I can kill you in the battlefield, but I can't do X, Y, Z to you once I take you prisoner. No. I mean, you're forfeited. Once you've initiated force, you've forfeited your rights. But a civilized country doesn't treat its criminals or its prisoners of war like animals because it recognizes that they're still human. And it says something about them. They do it for selfish reasons. Friend Harper, earlier you were on X being hosted by someone. I caught the final 10 minutes, but didn't catch who that guy was or any details. Can you provide me the context? P.S. I thought you did great. It was Atheists for Liberty. Atheists for Liberty, which I guess is an organization primarily of students focused on atheism, but from the perspective of capitalism, from the perspective of liberty. So most atheists are leftists. Most atheists are some form of socialist, statists. These atheists want to differentiate themselves by being atheists for liberty. And they invited me on, and I spoke for about an hour. You can find it on their channel on Twitter. You can find a recording of it. I'm interested in engaging with them and doing stuff with them in order to expand knowledge of Ayn Rand and objectivism in atheist circles, if you will. James, you skipped my motorcycle question. I did? No, yesterday? No, I didn't. The one about the Ducati? I mean, Adam answered that question. So check your premises. Go back to the show and you'll find it. Also, do you think that the future in the Gulf is still going to attract high net worth people in an Israel war? I mean, no. I mean, I think that this attraction of the Gulf for high net worth individuals is temporary. I don't think it'll last very long. I think people will realize that there's something very wrong about the Gulf states, that they're not completely kosher, they're not rights respecting, they're not rights loving, they're not Western civilization really, and people will start leaving and going elsewhere in terms of what they where they want to live. So I don't think that this is. I don't think this is going to be a long-term trend, put it that way. All right, it looks like there's now GPS outage all across Israel and Lebanon. Somebody's posting, my phone doesn't even locate me in Beirut anymore. It can't locate me at all. What the F? And yeah, that's probably Israel trying to jam GPS capabilities and GPS capabilities of the Hezbollah. Shelley, thing is, we expect them to act like statesmen from the old days, like Churchill. But that concept does mean gutted by all meaning. All we have now is bureaucrats and money-seeking politicians. Well, I think you're forgetting a major class, which is power-seeking politicians. I think most politicians are power-seeking rather than money-seeking. But just as corrupt as you suggest. James, do you think Europe and the UK will start to take seriously the potential war in the Middle East? Will the UK be safe for Jews after this year? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be somewhat safe for Jews, but I think that the risk of violence against Jews in the Western world is only increasing. It's only increasing. This is why I've always said Israel is right to have kind of a Jewish right of return type of part of it. Jews need some way to escape, because whether you recognize yourself as being Jewish or not makes no difference. They'll come after you, whether you have 1 iota, 1 ounce of Jewish so-called blood or DNA or whatever they call it. So anti-Semitism is a very real phenomena. And it's a very real phenomena, and people need to be protected from it when it turns violent, which Israel is that protection. James, reacting to bootcamp basic training videos will grow the channel. You can clearly see the decline and bring more viewers to you. Huh. Reacting to bootcamp basic training videos? There is such a thing? I'll take a look. That seems weird. All right. Matt, let me know how you both feel about Barcelona. I'm a real estate agent in New York City and would love to find you a nice place in Lincoln Square for next year. I'm not sure I want to come to New York, but maybe we could spend a couple of months in New York. It strikes me as super expensive. We've actually found a pretty cheap place in Barcelona. It's pretty amazing for the quality and how long we're going to be there. How reasonable this place is. But yeah, I'll let you know. Shali says, do you think it would be principled, legal to ban imams trained in countries hostile to your nation allies? It boggles the mind that real Islamists are allowed to come to the West as if there's no danger. I mean, I've said this for years, decades now, over 20 years. What the West must do is declare war against Islamism. And anybody who expresses views related to Islamism is now an enemy, and therefore can easily be banned. Ban immigration these people, ban the mosques, throw them out. But first, you have to declare war. You have to state clearly that that Islamism is a identified, unequivocal threat to the individual rights of your citizens. And then you can ban these imams, you can ban immigrants, you can ban you can actually deal with them. Paul, why does Ben Shapiro support the Christian Nationalists? He seems to evade the consequences, just like when he hired Candace Owens. I think because they hate the left. It's the left is the real enemy, we have to fight the left. He also knows that that's where his audience is. And he has to keep his audience together, he has to join hands with the Christian Nationalists. But his audience is there, and I think he buys into we're all enemies of the left. That's good enough for me. Mary Eileen, really good article in Venezuela in the Free Press. That's Barry Weiss's publication today. Opposition leaders, Maria Machado, she's courageous, heroic, and ready to fight to the death. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I did not see that story. Today was a busy day, but that's great. Definitely go to Free Press. You should all be subscribers on Free Press. Why is Biden stepping down now hailed as selfless? Well, because he's doing it for the country, and he's doing it for the Democratic Party, and he's not pursuing his self-interested interests in power and being president again. So that is why it's considered selfless, because he's denying himself the possibility of being president again. Right? Let's see, Shazbot. Well, he's quoting. Well, do it first and feel about it afterwards. That's Dagny Taggart. Another $10 if anyone can identify the person she is addressing. Who is Dagny addressing? She says, we'll do it first and feel about it afterwards. Who is she addressing? All right, I'll leave it open for a while and see if anybody comes up with something for an extra $10 from Shazbot. Arum, should young people in the U.S. make backup plans to move to another country in the next 60 years or so? If so, where? Japan? Also love your shirt. Very cool. I don't think so. I mean, the reality is that if America goes, where are you going to go to? I don't think Japan is the place to go. I mean, Japan is a stagnating economy, a shrinking population, very close to China. China would nothing more than to have its revenge on Japan. I mean, I don't know where you go. Maybe Argentina, if Milei is successful. So I think you want to keep an open mind, but I think it's way too early to start making plans. Maybe New Zealand. New Zealand is good. Nobody wants to go to war with New Zealand. So everybody's guessing James Taggart. So Shah's about that. That is the guess so far. Shahzbot says he already gave the extra 10. All right, he already gave the extra 10. I guess somebody guessed it during off of the chat. Let me just see. Zach T, thank you for the sticker. I want to catch some stickers. Apollo Zeus did a lot of memberships today. Thank you, Apollo. But we're still, that $69 that, anchored there, and we are going to, the show is going to end like in 3 minutes. Soup Cask. Thoughts on the criminal exception clause in the 13th Amendment? Do you think it should be repealed? I don't really have any thoughts about it. I mean, I don't know why you would want to repeal it. Yeah, I don't know. What is it about the exception clause that is a problem? Yeah, I mean, I'd have to research it and think about it, which let me copy it, but I don't really have a on-the-fly answer to that one. I don't know everything, shockingly. Arum, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate that. I mean, you guys can do $1 stickers. Arum just did $2.99. And we would get to our number if just a bunch of you did that. So those of you sitting there listening right now live, come in and do a quick sticker and help us get to the target. Andrew says, if sacrifice is noble, why is Jordan Peterson against giving up his job to a poor minority? Isn't there synergy between intersectionality and Christianity? Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this a lot, Andrew. Christianity is the origin of intersectionality because it is the origin of this kind of idea of real altruism, of real sacrifice of the individual for the sake of others. Fill in the blank of what the others are. But yes. So why doesn't Jordan Peterson give his job up? Maybe because he doesn't think that'll get him that whatever it is that you're supposed to get the higher value from giving up a lower value right now, right? He would say, I've given up my job and I'm preaching these ideas. That is more important. So given his definition of sacrifice, you can kind of massage anything into it. It's part of the reasons he has it. Pretty much any behavior can fit into the way he is defining sacrifice. All right, it is now official, at least from Israel's perspective, the Israeli Defense Forces have now publicly confirmed that Faoud Shukr, also known as Haj Mohassin, the chief of staff and the third in command of Hezbollah, was eliminated tonight by a precision airstrike on the suburbs of Beirut in Lebanon. This is a guy who was partially responsible for the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks, so he has blood of Americans on his hands. And, of course, this is a guy who had a $5 million bounty on his head issued by the American government, but the American government didn't do anything about it. Israel finally has. Good riddance to Faoud Shukr, the monster. These people are truly monsters. And finally, Mary Eileen says, the very intelligent tower director at the Taggert Terminal, I earned you $10. Thank you, Mary Eileen. So it was the intelligent tower director. So it wasn't James, quite the opposite. James, the non-intelligent. All right. Simon, thank you for the sticker. David Arsenault, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate all the support, guys. Appreciate everybody chipping in to try to get us to our goal. You know, if you count the memberships, we probably made most of it. We got very close. So thank you to all of you for doing. Well, we got it within $50 of it. So we got very, very close. So thank you all. Really, really appreciate it. And I will see you all tomorrow, probably 2 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. So come with questions. But by then, I think we'll know a lot more about what's happening in Israel. There might be an active war going on, and we will comment on that. Of course, that could also happen tonight. I might get on and comment on it depending on how it's evolving. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Tessa, thank you for the $20 sticker. Really, really appreciate that. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.